Hello, this is Kenny Trussell. I want to demonstrate a small program I developed to assist my mowing plans for using RG Rover with a mower, and where you wish to have a mowing pattern that goes from outside to in rather than up and back. You're probably familiar, if you've been doing anything with RG Rover, RG Pilot, with Mission Planner from Michael Oborn and all the great capabilities it has. For instance, if I wanted to do an up and back pattern, that's easy to do right in Mission Planner. I can simply define a polygon. Suppose I wanted to mow this square or rectangle such as this. I can draw my polygon, right click, go to auto waypoint, and do a survey grid. And then there are quite a few options to change under grid options here as far as the distance between them, the turnaround area at the end, the overshoot it's called, things like that, overshoot and lead in. But you can set all that up very easily and then click accept, and you have a very good mowing pattern if you want to mow up and back like that. But let me clear that and clear the polygon. What I was after was the ability to have a mowing pattern that looks something like this, where I mow around and get closer and closer to the center. So I'm throwing my clippings to the outside. So this is a counterclockwise pattern. Some people may prefer to do a clockwise pattern, but this was my way of doing it. So I developed a small program that will help me do this. So let me clear my mission, and it's up on GitHub. I'll show you that in a few minutes. But just to show you how it works, I chose to use waypoints as the defining method for the outer polygon rather than the polygon feature within RG Mission Planner. Mainly, it seems to me there's a little more flexibility in working with waypoints. For one thing, you see them down below here, and you can move them around and make changes there in the table, whereas the waypoints, you don't see that. They both create a file that's easy to work with in an external program, so either one would work. But in my case, I've used waypoints, so I'm going to define waypoints around my perimeter for the rectangle or rough rectangle that I want to mow, and then simply save that waypoint file out. I'm going to call it T2, so just to make it short. And now I need to flip over. You may not have noticed, but I saved that in this particular folder. It's the place where I have the program located. And now I want to bring up a command prompt. I did not develop a GUI for the program. I'm primarily, my programming background's mostly been embedded systems with not much of a GUI. I don't have a great deal of experience with that, so I'm just doing command line based things here, but a GUI could be developed pretty easily. The program's written in C++. A little bit more about that later, but basically now that I'm in the folder, I've got a tool set up where I can shift right click and open command window here, or either a PowerShell. So one way or another, you get into this folder with the command prompt. The program that I developed is named MowPlan. So if I type MowPlan by itself, I get a usage, a little help here on the usage. So you type MowPlan, the .exe is not necessary, of course, and then the name of your input waypoint file, the one we just created over in Mission Planner, the name we want the output waypoint file to be, and then the spacing in inches, and then a direction, which is either CW or CCW for clockwise or counterclockwise. So I can type MowPlan space T1 dot waypoint. Let's see, is it waypoint or waypoints? Waypoints space T1, I'm sorry, it's T2 that I want to do this with. T2 waypoints space T2 mow, or some name that I wish to give the output file, waypoints, space 60, if say I wanted 60-inch spacing between my each round, and then CCW for counterclockwise. Hit enter, and notice it tells me it put 45 waypoints in the new file. So I can flip back over with Alt-Tab to Mission Planner and load waypoint file, and there's the new waypoint file I created. Open that, and there's my mowing pattern. So it starts at waypoint 1 and works its way around to the last waypoint there in the center. Now, a couple of things. If you want to make this a little simpler and you know how to write batch files, you can easily create a batch file that takes away your need to type all of these parameters. So I've created a batch file, in fact, called CCW, and what's in there is the command to run MowPlan, and then the first parameter, I just don't need to give the extension, just the main file name, and it'll append .waypoints to it. It then will also create the output file called whatever name I type as that first argument with mow.waypoints, and then the second argument I give to my CCW batch file is the spacing. And then it already puts CCW because I've called this CCW, and as you might expect, I have another one called CW, which simply does the same thing but with CW instead of CCW. So an easier way to do what I just did after I have this batch file is simply to type CCW space T2 space 60, and that's all that's required. The batch file will fill it all in and run the command and create the 45 waypoints. Now, one thing, I don't have it prompting if it's just gonna overwrite if there's already an output file with that name, so you need to be a little careful when you do that. But that's essentially it. So let me just go back and show you a few more things about it as far as usage. I drew a rectangle and it did a great job, obviously. But there are a few things that you have to be careful about as far as the way you draw your initial waypoints. For instance, if I clear this mission and suppose I started my waypoints over here, making this rectangle. So there's my rough rectangle. Save the waypoints. I'm going to call it T3. Go over to my command prompt, and all I've got to do is change this to T3 and hit enter. So it's very quick once you get set up to pop back and forth and play around with different patterns and so forth. Now when I come back, let's load that waypoint file in, T3 Mow, and you see it did okay, but it starts here. This is my initial polygon I drew, 1, 2, 3, 4. But then notice where it put 5, way down here. So the mower is going to make a beeline across the center to this point and then continue up. So it's not terrible. It's just going to do that one little unwanted streak across there. And it misses this one outer part of the mowing pattern that I would want to do. So the rule is start with if you're going counterclockwise, start with the I guess southeast corner and work your way around. Draw your pattern like this, and you'll be fine. The program isn't perfect. It doesn't always. It sometimes will throw a weird point somewhere, but you can edit it once you bring it back into Mission Planner. So it really hasn't been a problem. So I want to show you quickly, or just talk a little bit about the program and how you can get it. It's over on GitHub. It's called MowPlan under my name, or my login name. That's Kenny Trussell, K Trussell. It's the magic that it does is really based on a library named Clipper. That's an open source library. It's under the Boost license, so the license file is in here. I licensed mine under the MIT license, but part of it, the library is done with Boost. And so anyway, all it's still open source, and a great library. That library can manipulate polygons and do great things with polygons. There's an online demo of it where you can on a web page try different things and see what all it can do. I'm simply using the feature that shrinks or expands a polygon, and I just call it over and over, shrinking as I build that the pattern. But definitely thanks to the developers of Clipper. There's a Python version and a C++ version of the library. I went with C++ so I could generate an exe file and not have to have someone install Python. But either one would work fine. The instructions are down here as to how to just run it. You just simply put things in the right directories and run it. If you want to compile it, I try to give you instructions on that too. So hopefully that'll work for people, all of you that like to try this. One other quick thing while I'm looking in my web browser, if you don't have the ability to, from within Windows Explorer, to open up a command prompt, this gives you instructions on how to make that work in Windows 10 and similar in other versions of Windows 2. It was built into some older versions, but not Windows 10. But one way to do, I can right-click on hold down Shift and right-click, and notice I have this open command window here and open PowerShell window here. Either one can work, but also I have the ability to right-click just within the directory, and again holding down Shift and open the command prompt. That makes it just very quick to bring up a command prompt in a deep down directory where you want to be working. So I'll put that in the comments, to link to that website that gives those instructions. So back to the program to look at a few other maybe more complex uses of it. First of all, let me just simply demonstrate, if I wanted to go clockwise, I would draw my initial polygon clockwise, save the waypoint file. Let's call this one T4. Flip over to my command prompt, and now instead of CCW, I want to type CW space T4, and let's say we're going 60 inches. It's created 41 waypoints, and come back over, load the waypoint file, T4 mow, and there it is. So just as easy to mow in a clockwise pattern if that's what you prefer to do. Now let me clear the mission and let's look at something a little more complex.